We live in a tech-obsessed world. 88% of US adults use the internet. 95% have a cell phone. And 96% of US homes have at least one television. You get the picture. You live it. And you see it every day. We put our devices on a pedestal by deeming them smart. And today our devices and machines are becoming smarter than ever. Science fiction movies have established the idea of robots in our mind's eye. But it's not all fiction anymore. Today, autonomy is becoming normal in everyday life. Delivery, cooking, milking, assistance, spelling, driving, vacuuming, surgery, manufacturing, the list goes on and on. And by the looks of it, this technology will only continue to grow. Smart home automation revenue is expected to almost double by 2021. Self-driving cars are expected to fill the streets by 2030. And robots have already and will continue to put large quantities of people out of work. While having a robot do your housework and drive your kids to school may sound appealing, this widespread and fast-growing autonomous technology brings up a daunting question. What does the future hold for humans if we are making it unmanned?
We're part of the Interactive Robotics group, and the vision of our lab is to combine the strength of humans and intelligent agents, including physical agents such as robots, to harness our strengths together to accomplish tasks that neither can do alone. I would define automation as some system that carries out its purpose without human intervention. That's different than autonomous systems and AI. So automation could be like your simple thermostat at home. You set a desired temperature and it has some PID controller to do that, right? Like refrigerator, that's automation. But we wouldn't call it AI, right? So when we say autonomy or AI, it's a more intellectual system that reasons around its surroundings, that is maybe more rule-based, more controls-based, not more than that, to adapt to the changing environment. We work in robotics for manufacturing, for healthcare, for disaster emergency response. One of the robots that we have, it's to help responders out in the field to dig up bombs, a bomb disposal robot. So that'll be one application. Manufacturing is big for us, coming up with automated planning, scheduling, optimization to better schedule robots, as now we are seeing transition into more flexible, cage-free moving robots, kind of like the Amazon Kiva system.
The idea of our lab is that creating robots that can support people is what will happen first, because a lot of these tasks that people would like to automate, the hardware and the sensing just isn't there. Like, you can't simply create a robot that can do this task. So it's much better, at least in the near term, to create support robots instead of trying to automate the task fully, which would be much, much harder.
My personal opinion is, especially in science and engineering, never say never. The moment you say this technology can never be created, you're pretty much guaranteed that 5 years later someone will have figured it out.
So AI is a future of robotics because it started with just pure automation, and we're now seeing more intelligent autonomous systems embedded in our physical agents, robots. But we see HRI, human-robot interactions, or interactive robotics that can work with people as future of AI. Because at the end of the day, our mission is to not necessarily replace people, but AI to augment intelligence, so help people, make our lives easier.
Yeah, so as you introduce more automation and AI, and you automate some of the different tasks that we do every day, it will kind of shift the type of tasks that we need to learn and do in our everyday lives to a higher and higher level, as the autonomy is able to perform the lower level and easier tasks. As the AI gets more and more advanced, it'll be able to do more and more of these tasks, and it'll change as a society what kind of tasks we have to do during our everyday life. So you can see kind of AI and autonomy as another tool that we created as a species that allows us to create new things that were not possible before.
You know, humanity has, 7 to 10,000 years of experience with tools. Tools are helpful, right? The stone axe helped people, and all technology helps people to some degree, right? We're very comfortable with tools and the fact that they help people. But there's something about these particular tools, robots and AI, that most people sense are somehow different, right? The stone axe doesn't talk back. It doesn't decide on its own how to carry out whatever it's supposed to be doing. That makes it exceedingly interesting, and it's not immediately clear how and whether such machines will help people.
In a lot of applications that you see robots today, so for example, car manufacturing, people think that the entire process is basically robots building these cars. But what a lot of people don't realize is that a very large part of the process is still done by people. So for example, the final stages of assembly of a car is almost completely manual, like people putting in components like dashboard components, stuff like that. I guess the reason why we need robotics and artificial intelligence is because a lot of the tasks either require a lot of precision or a lot of strength. You need to have the system be intelligent and responsive enough to understand what it means when a person is around the robot and how to interact with that person, what's safe, what's unsafe, which goes beyond just simple rule-based things like a thermostat. The system needs to be able to really understand its surroundings and what it means to interact with a person.
We definitely gain a lot of convenience and comfort in our daily lives. I would say maybe physically we're not as engaged anymore. I don't know, do you remember that movie? What's that movie? It's like an animation movie with that Wall-E?
Yeah.
Where everyone's just moving around and
everybody's super fat.
Super fat, yeah. So physically we're, that's what cars, self-driving cars, and a lot of these assistive devices are helping us.
What do we lose as a species? It's a tough question to answer.
I mean, if you like mechanically crunching up your thermostat and you like calculating these large matrix multiplication yourself, sure, you lose on that. But eventually, all these things are here to make our lives better, our lives easier, more convenient.
I think everyone would say the long-term goal is to help humanity, but how AI and robots will do so, and whether they will do so, is a very interesting question, and people have lots of different answers to that question.
While the allure of programming machines to replicate human work seems utopian, many fear this scenario could have negative impacts.
Throngs of Ford workers once assembled cars like the Model T, much of the work done by hand, by muscle power. Competitive pressures prompted industrial companies of all kinds to seek more efficient, less labor-intensive, and cheaper ways to make products.
Manufacturing as an industry within the U.S., if you look at the total output volume, is actually near its all-time high. But over the course of the last several decades, the actual number of people that that industry has employed is actually down over 7 million jobs. And the vast majority of that is actually due to technology automation.
According to one study, 47% of U.S. jobs have a high probability of becoming computerized.
Meet Amazon's newest holiday workers, the Kiva robots. At this fulfillment center in Tracy, California, more than 3,000 of them cruise the warehouse floor, helping employees fill millions of orders.
The little orange robot goes out and picks the right pot of inventory and brings it back just at the right time for the person to pick the item out to go in that customer's shipment.
But what happens to job growth when more and more restaurants automate?
This is one of the first McDonald's to start using automated kiosks to take orders. How it works is that instead of walking up to a traditional cash register and giving your order to a human, you walk up to a computer screen, swipe, and press on the long list of options to make your sandwich and your salad.
So when we think about the world of work, what is work for? What are humans for? And ideally, work is for humans. It enables us to express our humanity in the fullest possible way. But increasingly, we see the shifts where now it looks like humans increasingly are for work. And metaphorically, if they're not work-shaped, then we shape them differently so that they can fit into these jobs or these roles. If they're replacing the kinds of tasks or the kinds of jobs that humans don't want for themselves and wouldn't lead to human fulfillment, not a bad thing, right? But what happens when these machines are taking work, which is a resource for fulfillment, activity, which is essential for human flourishing? What happens when these machines start taking that from human beings? Well, then we compromise human flourishing, we compromise human fulfillment. And this idea that we'll be happier when we're not working and when machines are doing all the work for us, well, these aren't the kinds of beings we are. People like fulfilling work. So it's dangerous, I think, to the extent that we think about work as something to be avoided.
This distinction between man and machine is not going to continue, right? That there will be a merging of these technologies. Once that line starts to blur, then society no longer has the option to say, humans can do these jobs and robots won't, because how do these categories aren't really clear categories anymore.
Philosophers over the millennia have had very different ideas about work and about leisure and about laziness and about the relationship between human beings and work. Are we meant for work? Are we meant to be doing things? What kinds of things are we meant to be doing? What's going to lead us to happiness and fulfillment? And how much is work supposed to have to do with happiness and with fulfillment?
How much automation is too much automation? It's possible that people won't need to work in future. As a society, if we want to create these technologies, we may be able to reach a point where machines can do most manual labor for us, or labor in general. Is it healthy for society for employment to be optional, right? That's really now no longer about robotics and AI. That's a question for society itself to try and answer. As engineers and scientists, we can only provide suggestions and alternatives. Which ones society ultimately chooses is up to society. If we did choose as a society just to do jobs we like, have we removed the inherent challenge from life, right? Do humans need some sort of challenge? And again, how would we deal with that if being challenged in your day-to-day life was now optional?
I sometimes think if I weren't a philosophy professor, that I would be a farmer. Because, believe it or not, I know it just seems like it's physical labor that I was doing when I was on the farm. So I did some hay baling, and I worked at a farm stand, and I had a pet cow that I would take care of and walk around, and it was just so lovely. But it was an opportunity too for contemplation and meditation. I feel so lucky to have had that experience, and I wish that more people could have that kind of experience. And I would hate to see that work sort of Aristotle too prized farming and Plato prized farming for these reasons that enabled a kind of intimacy with living things. And I would hate to see humans no longer farm because there are machines to do that work. That would be a real loss, and wisdom would be lost. Human wisdom would go missing, for sure.
Our farm's Bittersweet Farm of Vermont, and we run a organic dairy with robotic milkers. No more hand milking. If we have a fresh cow come in, we check her and make sure everything's okay with her udder and everything. For the most part, any actual milking, no. We milk 120 cows, and they go 24 hours a day. Cows come in as they want. All the cows have a transponder around their neck that picks up their info when they come in. So they walk into the robot, it picks up their information, and they're allotted a time span for milking, and they get a different amount of grain for each cow. Too many mornings of having help not be here, and then having to figure out how we're getting through the day and finding more help to get into it. And that was the biggest reason was the help. I mean, I used to help. I have family that had farms and stuff when we were in a tie saw barn, and yeah, it was milk to the pail, dump in the milking station, and then pump it over to the tank. You know, it wasn't bad, but before then you had more time, I guess, and that's how it was. But now it's just you don't have time to do that, and this is such a huge savings, and you can go on other things, but such is life now. It's just on the go. So. We went from milking 2 times a day in a parlor to now milking 3 to, like I said, 5-6 times a day on some certain cows. I mean, right off the bat, we went up 5%, anywhere from 5 to 10% in increase of milk. You know, like when we looked into these, we outweighed putting on the parlor, a new parlor, new everything there, or looking into doing these. But when you outweigh your help, you know, you could milk with 2 people, but you need 4 for recovery time, days off and whatnot. So overall, we feel that these are, you know, a savings on when you're looking at help in the initial setup. If we bring in a new heifer, some of them take to it within a few milkings. Then you might have one that's stubborn and maybe go a week or so, depending on, they just don't like it, they kick or don't settle as well. But for the most part, it's 2 to 3 milkings. They're in there and they're calm. They get their grain and then they're getting milk, so that's all good. We do have kids. We have 6 kids, and yeah, we say that all the time, that, you know, they don't have to get the hands on of learning how to milk and stuff, but we show them, and, you know, this is how we used to do it and this is how it was done. And same with a lot of other things now. They're so much different now that you don't have the hands-on experience of how it was, and I think it's real important for kids and anybody that doesn't know to see, you know, from then to now, you know, how it was and how it is. Yeah.
This brings up an important point. What tasks will future generations never have to learn? Some experts say that children born today will never need to drive. When you think of self-driving cars, you may think of companies like Tesla and Google for their fully autonomous systems. But self-driving features are quickly becoming the norm for all car manufacturers. The testing of a new technology brings both challenges and opportunities.
Uber putting the brakes on its pilot program for driverless cars after this crash on a Tempe, Arizona roadway. Police say it happened Saturday when a driver failed to yield to the Uber vehicle while making a turn, the force of the collision sending the driverless SUV rolling onto its side.
Do the benefits of self-driving cars outweigh the costs?
If you look at the crash statistics, a large reason why people crash is because of human decision-making and human driving behaviors. And so by bringing in autonomy, you can eliminate some of the human element of these crashes.
They're much safer than, you know, the human being. They're not distracted. They don't have a cell phone going off in the car or a children roughhousing in the back seat. So from a safety perspective, they should significantly reduce the number of crashes that we see on the roadway.
The idea was, could we use vehicle autonomy to fit more cars on the highway? Now, the nice thing about highways is they're structured and they're also access controlled. You typically don't see a child playing on the side of the road of a highway. Likewise, highways are of a specific width and have specific lane markings. And so that makes it a much easier problem from a robotics perspective. The problem, of course, is that when you get off the highway, then everything becomes much more complicated. Things become less structured, more unpredictable, and more strange. A cobblestone road does not look like a paved road, for example. And so that's where a lot of the effort is now. Teams like Google, Uber, and all the automakers are really trying to solve this problem of driving in a non-highway environment. We're starting to see cars make more tactical decisions about how to navigate through more complex environments. That's really fascinating because when you see a car come up to a four-way stop and it has to decide what to do, there are certain points where the exact rules of the road have to be abandoned because of the way other people are behaving.
Over the last 12 years, there's been incredible advancements in BMW technology. We're working on several different systems to help us with our semi-autonomous features. They are mostly camera-based and radar-based systems.
We have a pedestrian warning system, we have a frontal collision warning system, we have a lane departure warning system with steering intervention. So basically what that means is one of the semi-autonomous features of the vehicle, I only have to have one hand on the steering wheel at all times. The vehicle will have the stop and go cruise control, which can bring me to a stop, can also start me up again. And as long as I keep my hand on the steering wheel, I have the active lane departure warning, which will steer the vehicle back into the lane itself. All of that I see through my head-up display here, so I can see when it's active and when it's not active. We also have the active blind spot detection with steering intervention. So again, it's going to monitor my blind spots. If a vehicle's in my blind spot and I happen to merge or start to merge lanes, it'll just pull me right back into the lane automatically. Again, those are all things that we can turn off if we like. Those are all things that the driver can override because even with our semi-autonomous features, ultimately the driver is the most responsible.
We also have the parking assistant, and that's a autonomous parking feature. It will allow you to park the vehicle in perpendicular spots or parallel spots simply by just holding a button. There's no use of the pedals or the steering wheel for the driver.
The problem is that driving is so complex that it's impossible to write all the rules that are out there. And robots will get into areas where they're confused about what to do when there is no rule. And that sometimes can lead to unintended consequences.
Sometimes wet roads like this, snow-covered roads, the camera does need to read the lane markings, so that's the only part where we have some difficulty.
To some degree, where this is all going in a society, nobody really has a good, clear picture yet because this is such a disruptive change. We don't really have a good sense as to what generations from now are going to want when they start driving.
I think there's a lot of government policies in place that will prohibit the testing of those vehicles in real-world situations. And it will be difficult for us to determine exactly what some of the consequences of those semi-autonomous or fully autonomous self-driving vehicles could be.
How are we going to accommodate or account for the autonomous vehicle and connected vehicles? And it's difficult. You know, we're taking our best shot at it, but I think the reality is we know that we're probably not going to be right. So we're doing the best we can.
We do know there will always be people who like driving. We do know there will always be people who associate their identity with a vehicle. But what's not clear is what are the percentages of the population that want that versus something else.
I've heard autonomous vehicles be compared to cell phones, and if they follow a similar pattern, like some people say they might, it is not far off at all. It's the future. No one has a crystal ball. So we're trying to do the best we can as a planning organization.
Just because a machine can do it doesn't necessarily mean we need to automate everything.
For Heidegger, though, he's not anti-technological. He thinks actually one of the great things about technology is that it is an opportunity. It sort of throws us back upon ourselves so that we do need to reflect and we do need to become aware of who we are and we do need to become aware of our relationships to technology. And so then it's an opportunity to learn more about who we are and to have a deeper encounter with reality.
The main thing that makes me interested in robotics and why I chose to dedicate my life to building them is they are in many ways a unique mirror in the sense that they're a mirror for us. So if we are able to create an intelligent machine and we watch that intelligent machine do something, it makes us think about how we would have done the same thing. So it pushes back onto us thinking about our own nature. Consciousness is one of those elusive terms like intelligence that's hard to define. Maybe by building robots that exhibit the properties of consciousness, that might give us a unique mirror or a unique tool to understand the nature of human consciousness, right? So I think the deepest impact robots will have on humans is to help us question and better understand our own nature.
So I don't know where it's all headed, but I know that we have a choice. The more reflective we are, the more that we see this moment as an opportunity to maybe do some of that reflection, the better off we'll be. When it comes to our own states of consciousness, we don't have a lot of practice, we don't have a lot of expertise. So to the extent that we can summon that self-knowledge, to the extent we can cultivate that and take our mental life seriously, that kind of self-awareness and self-knowledge will save us.
Just, yeah, hold the button. Here we go. And you'll hold the button all the way until the vehicle puts itself into park. And of course, this is the perfect car to have this on because this is a massive car. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.